Hi, my name's Dr. Allen. I'm a GP. So this is another little run through of a typical day of an on-call GP, and a few kind of principles really that are kind of common things that we come up against and the ways that we kind of manage them. So the day started with a lot of admin stuff. So there's 20 blood tests, 8 letters. I've seen 20 new patients, about 10 follow-ups. And my job on call is also to kind of support the junior doctors and the physician associates. So they've had training, but they're still often in the learning process, as we all are really. But sometimes they need support if they have a patient that's particularly tricky or something that they're not sure what to do. They run that by us, so we kind of help them. At one point, we had a meeting with some of the team leaders. So we've got someone from reception and the manager and the nursing team. And that's like an hour's meeting where we kind of bring some of the problems that we're aware of from around the surgery, and we kind of wrestle with things and we work out how to solve the problems. And that's a really important meeting that is part of what makes the surgery to function well. And that's a new meeting actually that we've just started, and that's really helping. A bit of a highlight of the day was the receptionists, with it being a hot day. Someone thought, let's ring up an ice cream van and get them to come around. So about 11 o'clock, we were all standing around eating ice cream. So that was a bit of a highlight. I noticed that it was kind of high hay fever at the moment. So one thing I did was create a video with some tips about hay fever and put that on our Facebook, because hay fever can pretty much be managed by pharmacy medications available from the pharmacy, as well as just kind of knowing what kind of tips for kind of managing it day to day. So I thought I'd put a video on and then everybody can have that information. We had a meeting around meeting our targets. So NHS England gives us targets, particularly around chronic long-term health problems. So people need to have their blood pressure managed a certain way, or blood sugar, or certain people need to make sure they've had a review every year. And so we need to make a bit of a plan about how we're going to do that, who's going to be responsible. So we had a little meeting about that as well. What else have we done? So some of the patients I've seen, so it's just so varied, sometimes it's mental health, sometimes it's pain, sometimes it's people who are quite unwell. I've admitted a child who 5:45, we found out that she was unwell and needed to go to the hospital. We managed to get all that arranged. So even though it was very late in the day, we made sure that she got the care that she needed. And as someone else who was very unwell and needed to speak to one of the doctors at the hospital, and he's gone into hospital as well. And I think kind of a couple of things that has kind of challenged me a bit today that's made me think has been around how interconnected the body and the mind is, because I think we tend to think about, is it a physical problem, or is it a mental health problem, or psychological? But the reality is that so much is overlapped, and pain is one of those examples where there's a lot of overlap. Even if it's something as, if you're feeling particularly low or depressed, any pain that you have is going to feel worse, and the experience of it's going to be worse. But there's also it's also the case that some pain can be can have no physical origin at all. So typically pain is perceived by the brain, and that might be because there's something in the body that's damaged, and there's some tissue damage, or a bone or a muscle or a joint, and that sends information to the brain and you experience pain. But there are times when the experience of pain is there, but there is no physical nothing physically wrong with the body, and they're slightly more puzzling, and we do have to really take those kind of things seriously, because sometimes we just need to do kind of have some real thought about it. But it does seem to be the case that it's possible for the signals of pain to reach the brain and to be perceived and felt like real pain, but there isn't actually a physical health problem there, and it's often rooted in might be kind of stress, or it's often related to trauma in the past, or mental strain, or depression, anxiety, and that kind of thing often can present as physical pain, and it's quite difficult to accept and to discuss and to manage. But that's something we come across very, very frequently. But I don't think it's really accepted or understood. And another one that's just quite interesting was around how often the right thing to do is nothing. So in general practice, we see lots of people for lots of different problems, and we're trying to get to the bottom of what might be causing it. And sometimes we need to do tests to work out what's going on, but often we don't. And sometimes there's different things that if we find something wrong, sometimes there's medication, but sometimes it's something that will just go away by itself. The body will heal itself. But sometimes we find that there isn't anything wrong, and people feel a bit like they shouldn't have come if there's nothing wrong. We don't do anything. But actually, part of what people can come for is that opinion. That's a reason to come. And doing nothing is often the best thing to do. Not always, but it is sometimes. And I think it's important for us, everyone, to realise that actually we shouldn't be trying to do something to justify the consultation. Sometimes just reassurance or taking some more time to see how things evolve is the right thing to do. So there's a little bit of a ramble of some of the stuff I've been doing and some of the things that we have to think about as we see people. Have a nice weekend.